So number one is give yourself a hug and show yourself some compassion, because we can go to one stream or the other, and then we can start being very judgmental of ourselves, or we can have a pity party. Woe is me, life happened to me. So the very first thing is show yourself some compassion and understanding that becoming self-aware, that it is a process, and being able to have a hard conversation with yourself and look yourself in the mirror, it is very difficult to do. And so, number one is show yourself some compassion. Number two is
hello and welcome to another amazing episode of TMC, where we are here to help you take your relationship from surviving to thriving. If this is your first time joining us, go ahead and subscribe. Click the like button and turn on your notifications so you'll be notified each time we upload a video. Today on TMC, we have a very special guest, Miss Reneé Smith with Marriage Resuscitation.
Marriage survivor, beautiful years. Yes, I am Reneé Smith. My husband and I, we made it through the pandemic, and I'm excited to be here, guys. I'm an entrepreneur and really figuring out the marriage, work, kids, life, having it all, and staying sane.
Absolutely. Right. While we're talking about how long you've been married, just let's talk a little bit about your marriage journey. Let's share a little bit of that with the TMC listeners.
So what's funny, I'm going to be very authentic and transparent, because I think that you don't have a lot of married couples that are. And so, well, I don't want to say a lot of couples, but you have some that are not. And so when you're going through the bumps and the bruises in your marriage, you just think that it's you and you think that the world is over. Mm-hmm. My husband and I are in an amazing space now, but a year ago, almost to the date, we were going through divorce proceedings. And it was God's intervention that brought us back to each other and helped us to reconcile. So I think with the pandemic, just like everybody else, it brought to surface and it magnified the issues that you have in your marriage. Mm-hmm. And so at first, we both made a decision to really just kind of hands up, walk away. And that wasn't what God had. So he humbled us during that process. So my husband and I, we met at a time where he and I both were rebuilding. And we both were like, I don't want to date anybody. I just want to, date myself and get myself together. But he and I knew very on that it was something different about us. And so within 3 months, we were engaged. And within 11 months, we were married. Wow. And so it was a quick process. But during this time, our journey to where we are now, we both brought a lot of emotional baggage, a lot of brokenness, a lot of trauma, which we didn't even realize. And so we were actually triggering that in each other. And so I think he and I both were in positions like, if you would just change, like, then this would be okay. If you get your mind right, and if you think like I think and act like I act, then we would be okay. And so it's been a process for us to get to a place of acceptance of who he is and me and him accepting, who I am, for us to really just be authentic with each other and just to be honest.
This is interesting. Maybe that's someone that's going through right now that maybe at that point where they say, you know what, it's not working. What happened? Let's walk through that process.
You just had me put all my business out in the street. So for me, very honest, God introduced me to me, because I was so focused on what my husband wasn't doing, what he needed to change, that I did not look at myself. And so during the proceedings, God set me down and he introduced me to me. And he said, you're expecting a harvest in your marriage that you've never sown the seed for. He was like, okay, I'm wanting this harvest. And God's like, well, you don't have any seed in the ground to get that. Ooh. So he's like, how are you respecting your husband? How are you nurturing him? Now, we're not talking about the kids. We're not talking about what the kids do, but him. So I was grouping what I was doing for family as part of me being a wife, and it was not the case. So when God separated the two, I was like, wow, I'm really not as great of a wife as I thought I was over here. And so I thought that because I wasn't yelling and screaming, that I was respecting him. But when God started showing me what respecting a man looks like,
Mm.
surrendering to his leading. So I am very much I am T. Reneé Smith, a recovering alpha female.
Come on.
That's
Recovering.
awesome. I love that.
And so he's an alpha male, and he's very much an alpha male. And so, me being an alpha male, we just were bumping heads, and we would get into these mental challenges. And it wasn't until was able to see myself that I'm not being a helpmate. I am not being a partner. I remember a message that TD Jake said. He said, wives are supposed to complement their husband and not compete with them. And
Yes.
so I didn't realize that I was competing with him, needing to have the last word, needing to always have my voice heard. I think because when I grew up, my parents were very overprotective. And so whenever I spoke and gave my opinions, they may or may not have listened to it. So I was in a space, oh, you're gonna hear my voice. Okay,
Right.
I will not be silenced. And
Right.
that just didn't work well. And so when I really looked at what my husband needed, I had to get more and tap more into my feminine energy. I had to leave that boss and assertiveness, which is great in business.
Mm-hmm.
And then when I came home, I had to put on my feminine hat. And I think two things that changed it for me was to understand. My husband explained to me, if I don't ask for your opinion, then I don't want your opinion. You suggesting and, giving nudges of what I need to be doing, it makes me feel like you don't trust me, that you don't
Mm-hmm.
trust my leadership. So the minute I was quiet and I realized that if he didn't ask for my opinion, then he doesn't want it, that was a game changer. But the more quiet I was, the more that he asked for my opinion.
Wow, wow, wow.
Wow.
I mean, you just
Jeez.
you already laid out a lot for us to
Right.
review, and I mean, just first
Right.
starting out with the alpha male, alpha female, and then the clashing of that, and I it's odd because Cedric and I had a conversation
Just had
about
a
this. Yeah,
conversation.
we just had a conversation about this because
Right.
I think a lot of times, even as women, we may not realize that sometimes that's detrimental to our relationships, to our marriages, because it's okay for you to be boss. Like you said, you're an entrepreneur. So you're boss. When you're in business, when you're at work, when you're in meetings, you're the CEO, you're the leader, you're boss. But when you are home and when it comes to your marriage and your family, there's a different role we play. And that doesn't mean that your input is not valuable and not needed. It just means that you do it in a specific manner so that you allow your husband to be who God created him to be. And that's to be the head of the family, to be the leader.
And I think what happens is we are so, probably because of our own trauma and our own issues, we're afraid of being vulnerable. And another thing that I realized, which was so powerful, when I started doing my inner child healing, I realized that I had childhood wounds. I both had a mother wound and a father wound. And because I was not taught how to emotionally connect, I realized that I was emotionally unavailable. So I'm asking my husband to give
Wow.
me vulnerability, to, talk to me about anything. And I wasn't giving that to him. And so
Wow.
again, I'm asking for things from him that I didn't realize that I was not able to give. And so my parents, they've been married forever, since Moses, but they didn't, like, I didn't see my mother's very strong, I didn't see that feminine, tapping into your feminine nature. So I thought like that if I'm tapping into my feminine nature, then it's kind of weakness, and then it's kind of surrender. It was a total mindset shift of scrapping all of those thoughts that did not serve me, and putting something new in there. And it was very difficult from the beginning. I was having withdrawal, I was falling off the wagon, I'll be like, well, what, what, hold on, wait a minute, I'm working on me. I did not mean to say anything. You did not ask for my opinion. Let's just start this conversation over. So it took me a minute, because I'm a coach by nature. And so I always have a question to ask or something to say. So it took me a minute to just be quiet. I have several clients, right? So we're supposed to be talking about business, branding, marketing, but it always leads to personal because I always say your business will never outgrow your mindset and your
Absolutely.
inner healing.
That's it.
And so it never will outgrow it. And so when we start peeling back the layers and when we start talking about the relationships that serve them, they're always a lot of times, well, my husband doesn't support my business and, he doesn't this. And so when we start going through it, like you've not put him in a position to support you. Like you're really trying to put him, like you're in such masculine energy, you taking control of everything.
Mhm.
And sometimes it's just like, you know what, I give up. She gonna do what she wanna do. She gonna say what she gonna wanna say.
Yep.
She not gonna
Right.
listen. And so I throw my hands up. So we're wanting something, but we're not creating a safe environment. So I realized that I was not a safe place for my husband. So he goes out, he fights against the world, and now he comes home and he fights against me. So
Yeah.
there's no safe space for him anywhere.
Yeah. I hate to bring this up, and the reason why I don't like bringing this up because I don't want any men or women to use this as an excuse
Mhm.
to step outside of your marriage. I know a lot of times that's what happens, whether it's male or female. It's like that safe place, so they're looking for a safe place somewhere else. I don't condone it, but it's one of those things. It's like that cause and effect thing where the individual step outside based on the fact of trying to find that safety because they can't find it at home.
And so it's funny because it's a learning opportunity. So I totally don't agree with, adultery either.
No.
But I was talking to my therapist and she said what happens is when something happens, it is when you get curious about it and you're asking the why behind it. So instead of being like, you cheat on me, you dirty dog, or whatever, you dirty, whatever to the woman,
Right.
to figure out what was missing. Like, what were you missing
Mhm.
Right.
that made you do that? What was it that you did not feel comfortable, in talking to me to get your needs met? Because
Right.
you may often find that, like, your mate may have been trying to tell you. Like, I remember my husband used to say, can you stop wearing those, flannel pajama
Right.
pants? Like, can you put on something sexy?
Right.
Can you whatever? And I would be, you know what? I've been working all day and I've been talking with the kids and I did this and I did that. And
Right.
not saying that, if he, had done something that it was justified, but like he had been saying that for years.
Mhm.
No.
And so at some point, I think when adultery happens, like both people have to look at each other. And so instead of playing the victim, they both accept the responsibility. I own that I did this and
Right.
that was wrong. And then you being able to look at yourself and say, you know what? I didn't show up like I, wanted to.
Right.
I'm talking to you like you my child, right? I'm, not dressing sexy. I'm not whatever. So it's an opportunity for you to be able to look and say, what is missing? Now, if it's cereal and, it's all these other kinds of things, that's
Mhm.
another thing. But I'm just
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
saying, if it's really like, I was just in search of somebody that made me feel like a man, because
Mhm.
this actually did happen with my client that I was talking about. Her husband stepped out. But when we started peeling back the layers, she disrespected him. He did not have any input in her life. She was not having sex with him. She used it as a weapon. And so then when you started peeling back the layers, she was able to start taking responsibility. They went to counseling and they were able to repair the marriage. Not saying that that's everybody's case,
Right,
Right.
right.
but it is a sign that something is wrong, something is missing, and you can kind of explore to figure out why or what happened.
Absolutely, absolutely. And you mentioned when you were talking, you said you were working on yourself, you were dealing with past traumas and things that you experienced. And I think that that's a big thing that we always talk about, starting with each individual in a relationship, in a marriage, starting with you, even when there is a problem, a situation, or a circumstance, instead of the pointing the finger part, like let's dive into this and what's really going on. What part am I doing? What part is my responsibility? And then that other person is looking at what part is their responsibility, and requisitioning things that you need to deal with to heal, because you said that word too. And I think that's important. A lot of us don't even know, the childhood traumas or things that we're still carrying with us, the baggage that we have brought into relationships, marriage,
Yeah.
parenting, all of that came from our upbringing and how we were raised and the things that we've experienced. And that baggage is there, but we have no clue that it's there, and how it keeps popping up and affecting our relationships. But when we do the work and start looking at self to do that inner healing, saying, okay, this is something that happened. This is something that happened. Did I sit in that? Did I experience that? Did I unpack that? How did this affect me? Is this why I respond this way? Is this why I feel that way? And doing all of that and help to do that inner healing so that you show up differently also affects things of this nature. You being able to say, even if this person, they're admitting that they did something wrong, such as infidelity or stepping out, then you are also able to have that part of you to say, okay, I wasn't responding to you properly, like you said, or some way, somehow I bear some responsibility in this.
You just said a whole mouthful. We can end the show. Okay, cut. One thing is, this changed my life when I heard it. It said, look at the relationships that you have in your life. You are attracting who you are.
Mm.
So
Mm.
the other person is just a mirror or a reflection of who you are. And so your trauma, your low self-esteem or your high self-esteem, whichever way it is attracting the other person. So it may not look like it on the outward side, but like a person that's extremely confident, extremely sure of themselves, extremely positive, it's going to be very difficult for them to attract and be in relationship with somebody that has low self-esteem, that's negative,
Absolutely.
that's whatever. So it's easy for us to see in another person that we're in relationship with all of their faults. But if you're in a relationship with them, it was something that attracted the two of you all to each other.
I agree.
Wow.
And that's hard. It's hard to be able to look in
That's,
the mirror.
that's a hard
Hard.
pill to swallow. Yeah, that's a hard pill to swallow.
We like,
Yes,
you did that versus,
yes.
taking your finger and then, pointing it back at yourself.
You can
But it's
connect.
your perception, it's the glasses that you are, seeing out of. Like,
Yeah.
I remember it was a girl that I was mentoring years ago. And so she just had low self-esteem, had gone through a lot of issues in her life. And it's this guy that approached her, and he was going to Morehouse Medical School, very professional or whatever. And she was like, I don't feel comfortable with that, because she was used to taking guys from the, streets and all that other kind of stuff. So that was her. Like, that was her projection, her low self-esteem kind of being projected onto him. But she didn't say, you know what? She was like, well, he's too uptight and he's this and he's that, versus saying, you know what? I kind of feel like he's a little bit out of my league. Let me go work on myself and my mindset, and bring me up. That's not what we do.
Yeah.
That's not what we do. And so if we've been dogged out or we've been mistreated, and we don't heal from it, that is the lenses that we look out of. So that's how we see everybody, even if that's not who they are. Like, it's not necessarily all the other people. Sometimes that is our
Mhm.
glasses, and we
Mhm.
need to clean our glasses. That's why you date the same kind of people.
Yeah.
Exactly, because sometimes that comfortability is found in somebody that needs you to fix them,
Yeah.
somebody that's more broken than you, or so that you don't have to deal with whatever you got going on, or they help me stay comfortable with where I am. Better yet, that if I can just stay comfortable with where I am, then I don't have to work on me because they're more messed up than me.
That's why people watch reality TV. Oh, honey, her life is way more messed up than mine.
Oh, that's so true. That's so true. What I want you to do, I want you to, before we move forward, I want you to speak to that individuals that
Yes,
maybe,
yes.
so they listen to this podcast right now and they realize, like, you know what? I think I need to start looking into myself. Talk to that person and then give them some practical steps on what they can do to move forward.
So number one is, give yourself a hug and show
Mhm.
yourself some compassion, because we can go to one stream or the other, and then we can start being very judgmental of ourselves, or we can have a pity party. Whoa, it's me. Life happened to me. So the very first thing is, show yourself some compassion and understanding that becoming self-aware, that it is a process, and being able to have a hard conversation with yourself and look yourself in the mirror, it is very difficult to do. And so, number one is show yourself some compassion. Number two is be honest with yourself and look
Mhm.
yourself in the mirror and be able to take responsibility for your own life. You are the common denominator in your life.
Mhm.
So, you've had 20 relationships, 20 different people.
Yeah.
It's you. You're the common denominator. So I'm not talking about anything where somebody was violated or anything like that. In that situation, you still have to take responsibility for your own healing,
Yeah,
not the action that happened, but
that's right.
just that I am responsible for my own healing. I am responsible for my own happiness. So, number one is taking a look at yourself and then taking responsibility and being
Yeah.
able to say, what is not working in my life and being honest. Because some of us, we will sit in mediocre. We'll be like, well, this isn't what I want, but it's okay. Like
Yeah.
it is okay. It's the best, that I can have. It's all right. So be honest and say, no, this is not the life I want. This is not the marriage that I want. These are not the relationships that I want. And so I'm going to take responsibility to change me.
Yeah.
And then you create a vision. We focus so much on what we don't want that we don't put any energy towards what we want. So really sit down and get an idea of what you want. And for some people, that's very difficult. So if it's difficult for you, write down what you don't want. And then on the other side, flip it. And then that'll give you what you do want.
Mm.
Right. Like if you're like, well, I don't want a man, that stays at home and doesn't work. Okay. So flip it on the other side. You want a man, that is aggressive and that works. So you have to know two things: where you are, then you have to know what you want,
Yeah.
Mhm.
and then you realize what the gap is in between to get you from where you are to what you want. So, step one, though, is compassion. Step two is be realistic about who you are. Step three is to create a vision for the life that you want. And then step four is to identify what that gap is. So those are the four steps. And for some people, they're not able to do it by themselves. They have to have somebody to help bring them out. So this is where your podcast comes in, your counseling comes in, coaching, therapy, whatever it is that you now don't go to a friend that doesn't have their life together
Mm.
to
Amen.
try to help you get your life together, right?
Yeah,
So finding somebody or a support system or a group to really, really help you.
That's good.
absolutely.
That's
Oh,
good.
yeah.
All
So,
right.
T. Renee, you are wife, you are mother, you are a CEO. Tell the TMC listeners about your business, what you do. You're a coach. You just working it out. Tell the TMC listeners about that.
So, guys, I am a strategist. I coach, but a lot of people have with coach they have a negative connotation. Somebody went to go get a certification over the weekend. They don't have any experience. You know what I'm saying? They trying to tell you what to do with your life. So I have over 25 years of business experience. And what we do is we help CEOs transform their life and transform their business. And we do this through business strategy, we do it through inner healing, and we do it through habit formation. And
Mm.
so what happens is I think it's so much information that's out there. It's like you seeing somebody on their jet, red bottom shoes, living in this 8,000 square foot house, and they're not being serious about what it took to get there. They're making people think that they opened up their business and first time they launched something, they made, six figures or seven figures, not telling people that it took them 15 or 20 years to get there, that the first 10 times that they tried to do it, it didn't work. And this is time number 11.
Yeah.
And so what we really do is to help people to, well, first the mindset. Develop the mindset, the business mindset that they need. Number two is the strategy. And then number three is the accountability and the execution. So we do it through consulting, we do it through workshops, and we do it through our membership club and do it through courses.
What are some practical ways that you keep it all together, keep that harmony, everything working together to be all the parts of you?
So let me just be honest. I don't always have it together. Some days are better than, some days we are crushing it. Other days I'm just like, did the kids get to school? You know what I'm saying? Did they get to school? Did I make my meetings on time?
All right.
So I don't use the word balance because if you're juggling something in the air,
Mhm.
your hands are going to get tired and some balls are going to fall. So I use the word harmony or I use the word work life integration because depending upon what season that you're in, like when my husband and I were going through divorce proceedings and we were working on our business, my marriage needed more of me, which meant that my business got less of me. And
Mhm.
then other times, if we're rock solid and I'm launching something, then my business can get more. So let me just pause and say this real quick. All my sisters out here that are married, men, I mean, I'm talking to you too, but I'm not a man. So I mean, I'm talking to my sisters right now. we are like, my husband doesn't support my business. God gave me this vision and I'm supposed to take over the world. And my husband does not support me. You know what? I think I might need a divorce. I am going to have to leave him because I cannot do my business. Let me tell you something.
Woo.
And the last week I've had like 3 of my clients like, well, I think I'm going to file divorce. I said, wait a minute now. Whoa. Did God tell you to do that? Or is that what you decided to do? Have you been in a prayer closet? Well, no, I haven't been in a prayer closet, but you know how I'm feeling. I said, well, whoa. I said, I can't tell you what to do. That's on you. I said, but if you step outside of what God's will is, then you're stepping outside of his provision. Now, if he told you to do that, like if you're in an abusive relationship, okay, that, absolutely. But if it's just because this man is not doing what you want him to do, how you want him to do it, you can't control it, then you need to get in the prayer closet and think about that. And so one of them was like, yeah, I hadn't asked God because I didn't want to hear what he said.
That's okay. I love it.
You might want to think about that again. But my husband, he helped me to understand. He said, it's not that I don't support your business. I don't support the way in which you're doing your business. He said, I feel like you're cheating on me with your business. He said, you think about it when you wake up in the morning, you go to bed thinking about it, you're with it all the time, and you're on the phone or whatever. So he said, we get the leftovers of you. Like we don't get, like you're physically here, but you are emotionally and mentally checked out. And by the end of the day, when it's time to practice that marriage ministry, I'm like, oh my God, I'm so tired. I'm so sleepy. And so he said, it's not that I don't support you. He said, but our marriage is not rock solid. And so then we're not communicating like we need to be. And then you want to put on top of that the demands of a business. So you have to make sure that your marriage is rock solid. And that's when God was telling me that I wanted a harvest for a seed. He was like, you have put time into your children. You have put time into your business. You put time into your extended family, your friends, but you have not invested that same time and energy in your husband or in your marriage. And so he sees this. He sees you investing in everybody else but him, but you want him to show up and be supportive of everything that you do. I was like, God, I don't want to talk to you right now. I want to talk to you right now. And so for me, I had to reprioritize in marriage for it to work for our family. And so at first it was my kids, business, family, self-care, and then my husband down there somewhere at the bottom. And so I had to reprioritize and say, my self-care, my spirituality, my spiritual relationship is number one because I can't give to anybody what I don't have. I'm supposed to be full and giving my overflow. So self-care is not selfish, it's self-love. So that's number one. Then number two is my husband. Yes, he comes before the kids.
Come on
and
now.
even the women that's like, oh my God, but it's a baby, it's a toddler. Like they need me. Your husband needs you. And when you put him before the kids, it's amazing how supportive he is in helping you with the kids.
Absolutely.
I'll tell you, like when I put my husband like right under my spiritual, like he was doing stuff that I had been asking him to do for 13, 14 years, just doing it.
Right.
I was like, I feel like I'm working less. Just because I'm putting him. So he was next, then the kids, then the business. So like there are 3 other things that I have to make sure that are taken care of before I even get to the business. And so I'm so passionate about the business, I'm gonna make sure that those things get taken care of. But my house was out of order. And I know y'all don't send me any messages, don't send me any DMs talking about I'm traditional, you the modern wife. Y'all don't send me any messages. This is what works for me. If it doesn't work for you, just leave it on the table and then you figure out what works for you. But I know that there are a lot of women out there. They're alpha women. They want to be in successful, happy relationships and marriages, and they just don't know. And so what's funny is when I was writing the book, The CEO Life, I was looking for what I wrote in the book. I was looking for a very strong woman who was rocking it in her business and she was rocking it in her marriage. I didn't see that. So like I was seeing I listened to a whole bunch of mindset and personal development. So I'm hearing, be in lion mode, be in beast mode, work 20 hours a day, get it done.
Get you a divorce real quick.
You know what I'm saying? And so my husband over here like, well, what you doing? And so I wasn't seeing, or I saw the other side where it was women in ministry. Like they have always been, domestic. They've always been homemakers. That was their life. But I didn't see in the middle where I want both. I don't want the or, I want the and. And so in the process of figuring this out, I realized that my business growth may be slower, right? I still have the same goals, but it may take me longer because I'm going to stop working at 3:30 or 4. So I can go get the kids and I come home and I can cook and I can do family time because the connection with my husband is important. Right. And I need to be vibrant to practice this marriage ministry when he tap on the leg and you know what time it is.
Right.
So for me, it just, I'm not able to do, or not even I'm not able to, I choose not to work the 18 or the 20 hours because I could have that successful business, but it would be at the detriment of my marriage, my relationship, and my kids. And so I think women have to be very honest with themselves and say, if this is the kind of marriage that I want, like I am really going to have to sow into it. And there are going to be some things that I'm going to have to shift within myself in order to show up. So it was a book that I read, and I think it was called Love and Respect. That was not the name. I messed it up. But that's what it was talking about, love and respect. And it was saying, when men feel respected, they automatically show love. When women feel love, they automatically show respect. But what happens is we get locked in and we're like, well, you show me love first and then I'll show you respect. And then the man's like, well, if you respect me, then I'm going to show you love. So somebody in the marriage has to say, I am going to show it first. I am going to do it first.
Okay.
I am going to consistently do it so that I can turn the tide. So somebody has to do it, the man or the woman. And so in my particular situation, it was me. I had the knowledge and I had to shift. And so that divorce proceeding, we were just locked. My husband and I were like, rah, 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 and he never wanted a divorce, but it was me. It was like, I know God is calling me to do this. I know I have a purpose on my life and I just can't do it with you. I just can't do it with you. And God sat me down. He was like, do you think, boo, that I'm about to propel you anywhere and you out of order? Well, see, God, what had happened was he does this and he does that. And he was like, well, what do you do? But that ain't what I'm talking about right now. God, that is not what I'm talking about right now. I'm talking about him. And so he set me down long enough to be able to say, it's about you. So anything that we happen, any disagreement, I show up with, what did I do? What did I contribute? What is my part? I no longer say, well, you did this and you did that. And nope, what did I do? And it has totally shifted our marriage. And when I tell you, like the support he gives me, the love he gives me, it is nothing but God. Like in the way that the business is going, it is nothing but God. But it would not have happened if I wouldn't have surrendered and gave my husband to God and just said, all right, God, you have your way. So I stopped trying to change him. I was like, I accept you for who you are. And I love you like God loves you. And I mean, that took some time, y'all. So y'all catching me on the tail end. That's why I wasn't on the podcast a year ago, because y'all would have been like, get her off of here. Get her off of here. But it takes time. It takes time. And what I'm going to say to people is this. You got to let your pride and you got to let your ego go. Well, he needs to apologize first and she needs to apologize first. And you don't know what they did to me and how they did. Okay, what is your goal? And that's what God kept saying to me. What is your goal? Is it your pride? Is it being right? Or is it a healthy marriage? And is it peace? And so what I started saying was, it's not about me being right. I want peace. Would I rather be right and by myself? Or would I rather be peaceful and in a loving marriage? Which one? Because you can't have both. You can't have both. And so whenever something is happening, I am thinking, I want peace. I want love. I want positive energy. So is what's coming out of my mouth going to be that? Do I even have to say what I am about to say? Is it going to help or is it going to hurt? And if it is going to hurt, then I'm just going to keep it to myself. I'm going to keep it. If I can't say it in love, if I am trying to say it tick for tack, then I'm just going to keep it in myself. So people have to understand that, like, having a loving marriage, it is sacrifice. It is surrender. It is humbling yourself. It is, choosing peace over being right.
Yeah.
And so if you're wanting that loving marriage, you're going to have to surrender and you're going to have to humble yourself. Like it just doesn't come. You again, you cannot have a harvest for a seed that you've not sown. You cannot expect this marriage and you not making any shift and changes. And somebody has to be the one to make it. So if you're listening to the podcast, it's you. So don't try to send the podcast to your spouse and be like, well, you need to listen.
You need to hear this.
I used to send my husband all these TDJ's videos. He was like, stop sending me stuff. Because the message was for me. I was the one that heard it. So whoever is listening to the podcast, you've been asking God for a sign. This is your sign. This is your sign.
Yep. Absolutely.
And don't hit stop. Don't hit stop now that we talking.
I love it. Yes.
But one thing I do want to say, because it just dropped, somebody out there is feeling that you surrendering and you humbling yourself is weakness. You surrender yourself and you submit to God. You submit to God, you submit to his authority, you submit to him or your higher power, whatever it is that you believe. And then because of your surrender and your submission to him, then you're able to submit to your mate. Like all of those things that you're praying for, that purpose that's on the inside of you, the vision that's on the inside of you, it is right there ready to be birthed, but God has to develop the character in you. So he can't bless you abundantly and you're out of order. You're talking out the side of your neck. You disrespected, your mate. It's not going to happen. Yes. Like the things that I had been believing God for 14, 15, 20 years, they did not manifest until I got in right alignment with him. Yes. And then if you are married, in right alignment with your spouse. Yes. So it is not weak. I am still just as strong handling my business, but I realize that I am a partner at home and I tap more into my feminine energy. So whoever it was that is thinking that this would be a sign of weakness for you because you've not seen it modeled, you were raised by a single mom, or you only have seen women of strength, it is strength for you to be able to surrender. It is strength for you to be able to follow in God's will. It is strength for you to be able to tap into your feminine power. So your heart desires a godly marriage. Your heart desires to be able to receive love. But when you walking in strength and power, it's like this, and nothing can get in, right? Like nothing to hurt you, but nothing good can get in either. Love. So open your hands up and surrender to God, and then just trust him and believe and let everything else happen. So that's for somebody. So for whoever it was, take that. You can find me on all social media platforms at Coach T Renee. That's at Coach T Renee. And you can find me at theceo.life, theceo.life. And I have a free 5-day CEO Confidence Challenge. And whether you're the CEO of a business or you're the CEO of your own life, take the challenge and start creating a vision for your own life, being able to look at your relationships, to assess them. And that's going to jumpstart your healing. And it's a process, and be patient with yourself. I have been on my own spiritual journey probably for about 15 years, but seriously, like the last 5 years. So it doesn't happen overnight. So just take one step at a time, because it is more painful to stay the same than it is for you to change, because you either are growing or you're dying, right? Like you don't stay the same, because things around you are changing, things are evolving. So just know that you're either growing and evolving or you're dying. So do not be in the same place a year from now, and look at the story that you're telling yourself. You cannot be a victim and victorious over situations at the same time. So choose. Before you get off this podcast, you choose if you're going to be a victim or if you're going to be victorious. And if you're going to be victorious, you're going to take action. So go to the CEO Life and get your confidence challenge. And then doggone it, you need to listen to every single podcast that these people have. Okay?
Awesome. Yes, awesome words of encouragement. Awesome action steps that us listeners can take on today. Thank you so much.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
On behalf of the TMC family, we'd like to thank you so very much for taking time out of your busy schedule and adding value to us all.
Well, thank you for sharing your platform with me. And I want to just be authentic and say you can have the marriage, you can have the life that you want. You just gotta put in the work. Pull up those sleeves, get a little elbow grease in, and do the work, and you'll receive the harvest.
We would like to thank you for joining us today on TMC. If this is your first time joining us, and if you enjoyed this video, go ahead and subscribe. Click the like button, turn on your notifications so you'll be notified each time we upload a video. If you're listening on iTunes, rate the podcast and leave a review. That helps us get the word out. We want to invite you to head on over to our leadership podcast, Lead to Greatness, where my husband is interviewing entrepreneurs and great leaders from all around the world every week.
So we want to thank you for joining us today on TMC. Looking forward to hanging out with you again on next week as we continue to help you take your relationship
from surviving to thriving. Bye. See you next week.